6.
I really, yeah, I
like
really
the number?
like the number,
Okay.
and that's not an indicator of her age or anything. It's just
Okay.
that's her name, and that's pretty much all we want you to know about her. We want you to kind of figure out kind of what she's about and what she's capable of doing as you play the game. And we're going to be intentionally vague, and I apologize for that.
No, I mean, actually, no apology necessary, because in this day and age, that's a really effective storytelling mechanic, right? Like, as a gamer, that's something that will keep me going one more level as these things are unfolding. So I can actually appreciate that. No apologies necessary.
Okay. Well, 6, you can see that she's a kind of a small girl, little yellow raincoat, and she's capable of like grabbing and interacting with things in the environment. And so a lot of the game is trying to figure out which things you can interact with and how you're going to interact with them to get her through the space and get her through the level and figure out what the heck this place is that she's in.
So that's the mystery right off the bat, right? Because I don't know how she got here. She's very tiny. She's alone, and we know she's very young.
Yep.
Do we know anything else about her before we get to this gameplay, or is it entirely, emergent through the storytelling?
Well, the storytelling is almost entirely emergent in our game. You're not going to get any dialogue or cutscenes or anything. The only text that's ever going to show up on screen is like button hints.
Tutorial,
when you're struggling. But this demo here picks up not at the very start of the game, but it's still relatively early. And the place she's in, the setting of the game is called the Maw, M-A-W. And we don't really explain much about that as well. And you kind of figure out bits and pieces of it as you play through. But we're not going to spell it out for you, and we're not going to say this is exactly what it is. You will pick up on some things that are apparent, but for the most part, it's this mystery that you're trying to figure out in this kind of unique place, and you're trying to figure out what it's all about.
I mean, obviously, just from the gameplay we're seeing so far, is that each room that we've seen has had a lot of interactive elements. Some maybe not even so obvious that you're interacting with them. Is this pretty typical of the gameplay, like a lot of sort of puzzle solving and a lot of sort of thinking around it, or is there also any like type of combat or anything like that?
Sure. So there is some light puzzle elements, like you see she's dragging the suitcase over so she can reach the switch. We're not gonna kind of bill it as a puzzle game, but there are puzzle elements.
Okay.
And there's no combat whatsoever.
Okay.
So one of the core tenets of the game is that 6 is a vulnerable character. She's not gonna go out and beat up her enemies or anything like that.
And that was one of the reasons I was asking, because I'm like, I don't expect, unless you were like, oh yeah, wait till she grows 10 times its size. It's awesome.
No, her superpower is being able to hide under stuff. So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
So I love how tangible it feels. I'm just watching. I'm not even hands-on controller, and I can really feel how she's interacting with her environment. I mean, you designed these levels.
Yeah.
What kind of, what were you going for? Did you have an inspiration?
Well, from the very beginning, one of the things we wanted to do was make everything to feel tangible. So like pulling a lever or pulling a door handle is a very intentional thing. And so the very first prototype that I ever saw on one of our other designers' computers was just a room with things you interact with. There was no game, there was no story involved with that. It was just a character, and you were going around and figuring out what kind of things you could pull and grab and pick up, and it kind of evolved from there. I think our narrative designer had a story being worked on, but for the most part, from a design perspective, we were just trying to figure out what would make sense if you had this little character in a kind of larger-than-life world. How would interactions behave? Like I said, a door handle is normally a very simple thing, but for our character, it's maybe she can't reach it. She needs to find something to boost her up, and it becomes a bit of a puzzle adventure in that sense.
I mean, to that point, that must be a lot of fun in the design of levels where, for example, the switch goes down. Oh, this is a bend, right? So you get to take a lot of these sort of normal things and incorporate them into the rooms. Like we saw the handles of the drawers being used as a ladder and such. And
one of the things that you'll notice about kind of the world and the environment is everything is a little exaggerated. Everything is a little larger than life.
Right.
And that's kind of, you're controlling this character, and so you're getting the view of it through her perspective. And
creepy monkey.
Yes, creepy monkey.
All right, I'm going to pick it up just for you.
Is
oh,
it gonna...
no. Does it do something?
maybe.
Can you turn it on? Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. So the story is through her eyes, and kids tend to exaggerate and they tend to misremember. So a big point of the game is these little nightmares, and kids have these recurring dreams or nightmares and fears that they have, like the monster reaching out from under the bed, which is just like a scary arm. So we kind of focus on that and build on it and make a world out of it. And our art director is very good at kind of breaking things down and finding the core of something and just kind of tweaking it and exaggerating it to make it this crazy thing. And I think it's come together to be really, really cool.
When when you think of like Little Nightmares, and we've seen some other things that's not 6 around, is that I mean, again, a part of the unfolding story, we're going to learn about what these things might be, or maybe...
Are you talking about the little characters that ran
The
away?
little paper hats.
Yes, those are called gnomes. We're not going to tell you anything about them, but they are things that you will encounter as you play, and probably the friendliest thing you will encounter as you play.
Okay.
So this game, I mean, it looks very much like its own game. I haven't
nice
seen
throw.
anything at all exactly like this, but I am picking up some elements of, a little bit of Silent Hill, a little bit of PT, kind of breaking through the room, and a little bit of like Little Big Planet. I mean, did you guys play at all with the cuteness, creepiness?
I don't think anything we did was intentional, but our art team and our design team have their things that they appreciate and they like, and it kind of subconsciously comes through when we design things. I think Little Big Planet's a good example of how kind of our past experience as designers, because almost our entire design team worked on Little Big Planet, and so that had a very physical interaction with the character in the world, and that whether or not we intended it to, it became a big part of this game as well. And so while it's a very different game, you can see that there are some overlaps there.
I just want to say, because you're talking about building the levels and stuff, and I've always had a deep appreciation for level design, even going all the way back to like the early days of Quake, right? Because there's some really small nuances that go, God, that's actually a lot harder. It's not just like, yeah, we'll put this thing here and this here, and it's like constant, iteration. I imagine when you're building that and creating like advancement in a way as a game mechanic, that is something that is really actually hard to do. Like,
yeah, we do an insane amount of iteration on this game, especially when a big part of the game is kind of nailing the tone of this world that's very unique on its own. And so a lot of times we'll have like really good ideas and maybe it's good gameplay, but then we'll be like, oh, but it doesn't really work with the tone or the story or and so we've done a lot of reworking and really focusing down to the core of what we feel the game is.
That's great to hear. Yeah. You're not sacrificing it. Go ahead.
As someone that had a handle on so many of the small details and that was part of those iterations, is there anything that might slip past intentionally design-wise most viewers that you would maybe want to draw our attention to, or anything that you put in there?
Oh, well, when I see this, I've played with it so much that all I see is the flaws, but I'm not going to point out the flaws in the gameplay. We've worked really, really hard to make it be a very, very polished game. We've always been quality over quantity. So, and just there's been a huge amount of effort to make things just feel really nice, feel really good, make the character control well, make everything be internally consistent. So it's been a huge monumental effort to do that, and I hope we've done it. So
I'm also really curious about like, and it's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I want this question to come out right, but like, this is unique for you guys, for Bandai Namco, right? Like, this is a pretty unique title in regards to, like, if I look at all the titles that have come out in the last couple years, this one is sort of like really stands out as like, this is much different.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm with Tarsha Studios.
Right.
So I'm from Bandai Namco.
Right.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. This is one of the first efforts with Bandai Namco's European division.
Yes, so
right?
Okay.
we've been working really
Okay.
closely with our European counterparts, Bandai Namco Entertainment Europe. This is definitely one of the titles that Bandai Namco Entertainment Europe has a lot of affection for. We're definitely carrying that over here into the Americas as well. So we're very excited for this title.
That's great. I
One
mean,
thing-
obviously there must be something awesome in the game for
Yes.
them to be like, hey, let's get. So that's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think my favorite thing about it is that working with Tarsier Studios, they're super passionate about this game. Like, they put so much work into it, and every time we talk to them about it, you can just hear, their dedication to it, and not only the game itself, but everything about it, like the music and the sound. It's really inspiring to us to be able to work with people so passionate like that.
That's
But
awesome.
For the game, this is actually the place where we're going to stop the gameplay.
Okay.
Because we don't want to spoil too much of the game for you guys.
Okay.